Hey, yo, what's going on, guys? We have a brand new buy or bust for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the Ancient One. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, key synergies, key counters, 3 decks for you guys. And we're going to kind of give you a good, thorough breakdown of what this card does, what you should be using this in. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. So in case you guys did not know, the Ancient One is the brand new Series 5 card that is a 3-cost, 5-power card. On reveal, add the Tall Mandala to your hand, which you'll see on screen what happens and what the Tall Mandala does, which, if you guys did not know, is in on reveal, copy the text of one of your ongoing cards here onto your other characters here. As you've seen in the video here as well, the cards that are copied do keep their original cost. It's not like they change, kind of like images of icon, kind of, you know, changes the card itself. It'll still be like the same card in that lane with the same power, the same cost, but it will have a different text. If you have multiple ongoing cards in the same lane as well, it'll have to choose randomly between those ongoing cards. So the best way I would say to play this out would be to have a single ongoing card in that lane to make sure you maximize or know guaranteed what ongoing is going to be copied onto the text of those other cards. Talking now about the key synergies. The first card I actually thought of is going to be Victoria Hand, because you're doing a lot of card generation itself, or even some of the cards that create the new cards. After they've created the new cards, they just take up a board spot. So if you like have a Victoria Hand and then an Agent Coulson, your Agent Coulson is just kind of sitting there on the board. It's a 3/4. Yes, it has that 4 power, but if you're using a Victoria Hand deck, more than often than not, you're wanting to like Frigga or Moonstone this card. So having the Ancient One as another one of those options to be able to copy even the Ancient One's text herself, like having the Ancient One played onto a Victoria Hand lane and then coming through and hitting that with the Tall Mandala makes it so that Ancient One, after it already created that activated or that skill card, then also has a Victoria Hands card, and you're continue just to be able to have so much power spread out across the board with the card generation. It's kind of what you're trying to do anyways. It feels really solid. That's kind of what I'm theorycrafting is going to be really good with this. Next, of course, we do have something like a Captain Carter. Captain Carter is an ongoing card, you guys know that her power is what is added to the base power of the cards in the row behind her. It is an ongoing ability as well. If you can set this up the right way and maybe even have a Galacta on a Captain Carter, which more often than not you have them on different lanes, of course, or even other ongoing cards, and then you have the Tall Mandala. Of course, it would have to choose between the 50-50. It's another ongoing card, but if it is another card that has a solid base power itself, that's another great card to be able to have with Captain Carter to really buff up the back row cards themselves. And then, of course, we do have Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel gives you 1 power across the entire board. If you have multiple of those with a Tall Mandala, that seems like it can be really solid, which is one of the examples they used in the video as well. Of course, there's other cards, like even maybe a Goliath could be interesting. Ant-Man could work well. Kazar, even like a Ravonna, or some of these just, you know, energy discounting kind of cards, even like a Sarah, could be really solid to be able to get extra value from the Tall Mandala itself. But like any card, it is going to have some counters as well. The next counter is going to be, of course, Enchantress. These cards, of course, are in a single lane. So Enchantress says, why, hello there. Thank you for just giving me a very easy lane to just maximize my value as a card itself. And this card will be extremely played during the Tall Mandala week, because the Ancient One is just going to be, if everyone gets the Ancient One, of course, there's going to be a lot of Enchantress. There's already a decent amount of Enchantress running amok anyways, because Sam Wilson still exists, and being able to nuke Sam Wilson so he can't move the shield anymore if you're not using Mercury, or people might even run that because Mercury is existing right now and they don't want to deal with that. Of course, Cosmo, because the Tall Mandala is an on reveal and the Ancient One is an on reveal, Cosmo, it does stop both of those from being able to happen. And then Juggernaut being able to offset where you might be wanting to play that Tall Mandala. They're going to see you have ongoing cards there. If they know you played the Ancient One, they can kind of assume you're going to be playing the Tall Mandala onto a lane that has an ongoing ability. And of course, the Juggernaut does move that card itself because it's cards, not just characters like Goliath. So Juggernaut is a great counter to that. But let's talk about the good and the bad for this card. So starting off with the good for this card itself, there is multiple win cons you can potentially have by having the same ongoing lane, because a lot of the time, like especially with like Victoria Hand, one of your main win cons is Victoria Hand. So having a bunch of outlets to be able to have lots of Victoria Hands to really optimize the value of your other cards is something really solid. Potentially even with the Zoo, with the Blue Marvel, sometimes you just have squirrels on the board that just are getting buffed, but they're not really doing too much. But if you have multiple of those Blue Marvels, you get the value there, like you've seen in the dev video itself. Next, of course, it gives your cards potential buffs instead of just sitting on the board. Like I was saying, you've just played an Agent Coulson, and then Agent Coulson's a 3/4 on the board, which is okay, but it's not doing anything else there. It's just not something retroactively that's going to necessarily win you the game, where if you play the Tal Mandala onto that with the Victoria hand, like the example I said, that is 2 Victoria hands that really can help you win the game, because that is your primary win con, which is very important there. Next, of course, the Ancient One is a 3/5, so pretty good stats for a 3-drop. 3/5 is pretty much the new like good standard for a 3-cost card. Next, of course, it is a generated skill, so whenever you play the skill, it doesn't take up a board space, so you can use that against the Clog, because there's a lot of Clog right now, or to be able to continue to set up stuff later on in the game. But the bad for this card is you do essentially have to spend 6 energy to get the maximum value from this card, because the Ancient One is the 3-cost, and the Tal Mandala is a 3-cost as well. Of course, with Quinjet, that would make it a 2-cost, so then you're only spending 5 energy, but you're kind of playing that in mind, knowing that you're going to be spending more energy than you probably would have thought of because of what the card is that you're playing. Of course, you have to have ongoing cards on the board. The skill does not do anything if there's no ongoing cards on the board. It's just playing a skill out that just evaporates into nothing. Maybe you have Nicholas Scratch on the board, so you're getting value there, but like, not really. And then, of course, Enchantress just destroys this card because, you know, it is all the ongoing cards into one singular lane. If they're running Enchantress, you're just praying they're not running Enchantress. Maybe you're running Cosmo to protect that, protect your lane from that instead, but Enchantress really does absolutely cook this. And then, of course, you have to plan out when to play this. It's a bad late combo draw because you're setting stuff up for later on. Because if you play this out on, like, turn 5, turn 6, maybe you don't have any energy cheaters or anything to be able to play the Tal Mandala out. If you play it on turn 6, it's just a 3/5. You're not being able to use the skill at all anyways. So just keep that in mind as well when you are playing this card. But let's talk about the floor and the ceiling for this card. So what I'm thinking is on the top end, you have 2 other cards in the lane with your ongoing card, so you have 3 cards in that lane. So when you play out the Tal Mandala copies that ongoing card onto the 2 other cards, so then you have 3 of the same ongoing cards in the lane. That is the absolute peak, and you're feeling great, and that's when you're praying that there is no Enchantress running around. And then, of course, the next iteration, more like the middle line, would be you have another ongoing card in that lane. Like, you just have the ongoing card and another card. So then you have 2 of the same ongoing cards in one lane. Then you can play 2 other cards into that lane. So that's another just really good option there. In the middle line is just having another card you can copy the ongoing ability onto. And then on the bottom line is you don't have an ongoing card to be able to copy on to it, or you're just able, it's a late draw and you can only play this on turn 6. So then it's just a 3/5. So, I mean, not the worst, but you're not getting any value really from this because you're trying to use it really for like its other ability kind of thing. And I think actually using the Tal Mandala on Ancient One itself too, and on a lane with ongoing cards, might actually be one of the best ways to do it. But when we're looking at the decks for this card, the first deck that came to mind is the Ancient Hand, which I have over here, which is going to be a very big card generation deck. You have Quinjet, you have Snowguard, you got Mirage, Surge. Surge is card generation, but you have Valentina, Kate Bishop, you have Coulson, you have Frigga. And so, like, you have Quinjet, Victoria Hand, and Moonstone as your 3 ongoing cards here. The main ones you're probably going to want to copy are going to be Victoria Hand, potentially even Moonstone. You know, Kate Bishop does also generate the Pim Arrow. Pim Arrow is a pretty decent ongoing card to be able to potentially, you know, copy as well. Quinjet, if you have a lot of card generators, this could also be really solid to be able to play all this stuff out. But that's like, it's kind of just a Victoria Hand thing here. You could also play like Demon, Hood, Misery style, which I think is the other iteration you could play of this list to be able to get all that sort of value, like a Fire Hair, maybe Victoria Hand kind of thing. So you just have demons flying everywhere, which I would probably like swap out Snowguard for that. And then maybe you swap out Shang-Chi or Valentina potentially for Misery. Probably not Chi because you kind of need Chi right now because the way the meta is, it's still very power heavy. Going over to the next list over here, we have the Toxic one. So I've been playing a lot of Toxic Surfer, and I was thinking, actually, Surfer or just Toxic in general could be very interesting with the Ancient One, since a lot of the core cards that are really like extra, like winning you lanes are ongoing cards. So you have your Diamondback, you have your Man-Thing, you have Ajax, potentially even Sarah. Luna Snow, being able to change that Ice Cube into an ongoing card also could be really solid. Or even like Scorpion into an ongoing card. turning your Red Guardian ongoing card, multiple Ajaxes sounds pretty decent to me. Using your Surfer and then maybe turning that into ongoing card. There's a bunch of different options here, and like Toxic Surfer already was feeling pretty good. I was playing some of that the other day and actually felt pretty solid. So Toxic Surfer's not a bad idea. Of course, Merlin still is running amok, so you can kind of offset if you're doing a lot of Affliction early on. But I think this is a pretty good shout for this in general. The next list we're going to have is the ongoing one, which I want more of the Patriot style instead of a Marvel Boy kind of style list here too. With Ancient One here, you can copy your Ant-Man, you can copy Dazzler, Patriot, Blue Marvel, Moonstone. Like, you have a couple different lines there you can kind of mess around with. You do have Merlin in this list as an out if you don't have potentially like these cards to be able to get the extra value you're wanting. Like, if you have the squirrels on the board and then like you're not able to do anything with the squirrels, you can kind of swap them out. Or like the arrows you get from Kate Bishop, you can kind of swap them out for extra energy. You can polymorph them. Extra energy is honestly pretty nice with, you know, Patriot in general, to be able to play out some of these combo pieces later on. You have Mockingbird for your tokens, which are squirrels, the Kate Bishop arrows, so you can kind of discount her a little bit too. Of course, I think there's a bunch of different ways you can probably do Zoo, and I think maybe a Thanos Zoo could even be better. Probably is better than like Patriot kind of Zoo stylist, but I was thinking maybe you could do something with Patriot here. Cool. So this is kind of like just what I was like theory crafting there when I was kind of making these decks. But that is going to be the gist of the decks. Moving on to the Ancient One itself. This is kind of what I'm thinking about with a card. I think it is moderately strong. It is nothing crazy just yet. Of course, you know, we haven't really been able to get hands-on with this card to kind of test and see where it best fits. I think it's going to be a little narrow, but like the narrowness is going to be really solid where it does work. Kind of like Victoria Hand's a little narrow too, but like Victoria Hand is really good. That's why like the flexibility I don't think is all too crazy. Adjusted, I don't think they would adjust this as a nerf this card unless, you know, people are seeing things I'm not, which you can let me know down below. What are you guys truly seeing with this card as well? What do you think about it? But maybe they do buff this card. Maybe it is they do decrease the cost of the Talmadala, so it's not a 3/3. You know, maybe they make it a 2 cost. Something like that would be very interesting. But moving on to what we are going to rate this card, I do think this is a buy. I think it's still a wavering kind of buy like Morgan Le Fay, but I like this more than Morgan Le Fay, if that makes sense. I think the outs you can have with this card to be able to get value by playing out the Talmadala to be able to have extra ongoing cards, which are more often than not in some of these key lists, you're like win con. So having multiple ways to hit your win con and get value there seems really solid, especially even hitting that Talmadala onto the Ancient One itself. I think that is really good. But as always, you guys, you know, at the end of the day, we are theory crafting. I am theory crafting when it comes to these videos. So some of these cards do perform the way we think they're going to perform, and other times they just fall flat. Or sometimes they just completely surprise us. So buy the cards that you guys want to play. Snap packs are a great addition to this game, and it is really awesome that it's giving people a better opportunity to be able to get these new cards. And it allows the devs to be able to buff and nerf these cards way better because they're not just in a spotlight for a week and then you have to wait for them to return to a spotlight. They are still in these seasonal snapbacks for at least 2 months, which is really, really solid. So just keep that in mind when it comes to these cards. Resources still are scarce at the moment, so if you don't have a lot of resources, I would wait a couple days and see where this settles. The meta is going to be interesting after this weekend as well. At the time of posting this video, the Creators Gauntlet, or not Creators Gauntlet, the Golden Gauntlet, will be live, and people are going to be playing all sorts of other stuff, and that's going to kind of offset the meta or make a potentially new meta. You're going to see a lot of these cards that people are using in the tournament this next week because a lot of the big content creators and stuff are going to make videos on these as well. I'll probably try and make some more videos on these cards as well. I'm trying to get back into the habit of making more deck guides a week, so be on the lookout for that. So just keep that in mind prospectively when it comes to these cards. The meta can change in a large variety of ways. There's no OTA next week. And then there is, I don't think, any OTA the following. I think we have another 2 weeks before an OTA. So 2 entire weeks, potentially 3 weeks until an OTA. So keep that in mind before they adjust anything. It might be a hot minute. I think they might be waiting until the Dormammu week, if I'm not mistaken, which that'll be a very interesting week. But let me know down below. Do you guys think you're going to be getting the Ancient One, or are you guys going to be waiting out for potentially the card of the season Nightmare next week, which I'm very excited to talk to you guys about because I got some really crazy ideas. But until the next time, definitely feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. I really appreciate all the love and support you guys have been giving recently. Until the next time, it's been real. God bless, and Tucker out.